what I am going to say is just listen to trans people.
Oh, of course. I will say, however, please don't check in on your trans friends if you're not choosing to publicly speak about this yourself. These people are just on another planet. They don't realize how totalitarian their worldview is.
The rhetoric is so toxic.
The rhetoric is just saying women are women.
We need to educate boys out of misogyny.
Oh, we just need to teach men not to be predators. Yeah. Okay, let me know when you've solved that issue.
I don't want to be talking about trans issues all the time. I want to be talking about misogyny because that is the force that affects me and women.
You can't suffer misogyny if you're a man. This is deranged.
Who is anyone to... Trans women are women.
Of course. If all fails...
Yeah, the judge was quite clear that there are two categories of women, a biological woman and a certificated woman. And as a certificate...
That's not what he said, actually.
Just listen to trans people. That's all I can say in this moment. Our feeds have been flooded with think pieces and words of support and condolences for our trans siblings all day.
Trans siblings. Like, what does that even mean?
And there is nothing that I can add that wouldn't already be repeating or echoing what has already been said.
Yeah, because nothing anyone says proves anything. It's all just rhetoric.
So what I am going to say is just listen to trans people.
Oh, of course. Yeah, cool. Let's just do that. And then we'll realize that men are women. Yeah. I mean, the problem is that when you have a group of people denying reality, then the last thing you're going to do is say, just go and speak to the flat earthers. And in some cases, yes, that's useful, but we have spoken to the trans people a lot. We've spoken to the trans mob. We've heard the arguments. None of them make sense.
Listen to what it is they need in this moment. And not just in this moment, what they need from us as allies in general. Not just today.
Is there any emphasis on taking responsibility for your own life? It's always, this group are just the most victimized in society and they always need sympathy. I mean, you know, even for people who identify that way, it's a horrible environment to foster, to just tell them that you are so oppressed and everything is shit for you, basically, when it's really not the case. It's the best time in history to be one of these gender nonconformists who think they're the opposite sex. And when you look at all the trans people who are actually thriving, they are people more like your Blair White Buck Angel, Debbie Hayton, these people who have come to terms with biological reality and are against a lot of the dogma. And they seem to be doing just fine. They seem to be doing just fine.
Because this is still going to matter tomorrow. It's still going to matter next week. It's still going to matter next month. And it's no coincidence that at the same time, public LGBTQ plus events have been banned, legally banned in Hungary.
That was a red herring. I don't know enough about that. A lot of this is due to the crazy trans activists that are smearing gay people, and they're rolling, in some cases, our rights back. And I really don't think that's going to happen in the UK. We have far too many people on our side. This doesn't really have too much to do with Hungary right now. And he's saying that, you know, tomorrow, next week will also be relevant. I keep thinking about this because I'm so curious. I wish I could just, for a few hours, fast forward to the year 2050 or something and see, like, what is the consensus on these ideas now? Is this even a thing anymore? Has this social trend passed? And what have all these people done in terms of backtracking and realizing that it's unpopular? Are some of them just going to continue believing this until they die? I'm sure a certain portion will. Just like people say being communists when that has failed and caused so much devastation. But they're not going to be able to say, oh, well, I never really believed in that because we have all these receipts. You know, it's a very different time.
That's not a coincidence. And if you think it's a coincidence, you need to wake the fuck up. We're living in quite a very scary and regressive time. And
except it's the best time in the world to be safe in Western society. Well, actually, that's not certainly true because, you know, due to mass migration, our countries are becoming less safe. But still, these people just really don't understand. You know, a lot of them studied history at school. Like, were those times regressive? Were those times unsafe? Centuries ago? I think yes.
Change isn't made by being silent or by standing back. It's made by fighting back. And the way to do that is by listening to trans people and listening to what they need from us as allies. So just check in on your trans friends, follow trans activists, follow trans charities, and just do your fucking bit.
Yeah, so just listen to one side to inform yourself. That's basically what he's saying. Shout out to Max. I have no time for him, no sympathy for him. Hey everyone, just taking this moment to say, if you have not subscribed or liked the video, please do so now. And with that said, let's get back to the woke meltdowns. Well, the Good Law Project also chimed in and wrote this fabulous article. The Supreme Court ignored trans voices. I'm ashamed of what our law has become. So these guys are equally deranged. We've seen this trend going around of why did they not consult trans people? And that's always the thing. Like, trans people are left out of the conversation. Well, actually, you guys haven't been, because you dominate all the mainstream media with your dogma. It's also because of you guys we have stuff like the Gender Recognition Act in the first place, which has caused so much of a mess, and that we're able to go back and change the past, pretend that you were born the other sex when you're not. I wonder, did you have a single trans person or someone from the queer community within this court to come to this decision? And this is just a very reductive, simplistic understanding of what this whole thing has been about. And especially, you know, queer people. I mean, why would they have what you see as a gay person just in there advocating their own dogma? So the Good Law Project said no trans organizations applied to intervene. There's a reason for that. It's because they know from bitter experience what legal proceedings mean for them. Punishment beatings in the press, that the Charity Commission is likely to investigate, that their staff will face threats of violence, and that it may well kill the organization. And it's just all more hyperbole. And who have been attacked more, like I've said before, is the women, not the trans activists. You know, this whole notion that they had to consult individual trans people. I mean, this whole proceeding had the Scottish government on the opposing side. They were against the gender critical feminist argument and for Women Scotland that women refers to biological female. So you actually had the whole government on your side, trans people. You had Nicola Sturgeon, who is disgraced for putting a rapist in a female jail and wanting self-ID. So you've had a lot of people on your side and you've still lost. So that should really tell you something. And the whole point of this was trying to resolve this discrepancy between the Equality Act and the Gender Recognition Act. People were arguing about the legislation. This is not about individual feelings of trans people, individual feelings of women. It's about biological reality and sex discrimination, you know? And then we have all of these just progressive people on Instagram. Oh, I'm going to repost this. I'm going to repost that. Like, honestly, you are cringe. You're cringe, you're crisp, and you're cute. You're cute. I just can't. I have no time for all of these social justice warriors who put no effort into getting informed. And why would they? Because their whole social circles is built on these ideas, right? This article also said the result, as every trans person knows, is an epidemic of suicide. Not true. Absolutely not true. And even that reality is denied to them. Government departments are stretching every sinew, nice word, to prevent publication of suicide statistics, which are acutely embarrassing to ministers who like to pretend to care. Where is the evidence for this? That they're suppressing suicide statistics. You know, it's you guys that inflate them. Several years ago, the Good Law Project commissioned a large survey with YouGov of how people with different protected characteristics trusted the judiciary. It showed that the lowest level of trust in the judiciary was held by trans people. Well, that's because the far left progressives are anti-establishment. So they're just going to mistrust all the institutions. And actually, most of us distrust them too, because the judiciary is stopping us from deporting violent rapists and pedophiles. So that's another story. I'm so disgusted and scared about the UK Supreme Court's ruling today that the definition of woman is based on biology, in quotes. This is unscientific. This is bigotry. This is about control, removal of body autonomy, and about making the lives of already vulnerable people even more difficult. I'm actually just so impressed sometimes at how well these ideas have taken hold, and a whole generation of a lot of youthful people believing in this absolute crap. It was once very obvious who was a man and who was a woman, and now they all think it's just anti-science. Like, what planet are they on? All I had to do was hear the arguments once and go, oh right, yeah, that makes sense, that sex is based off the gamete argument. It matters not what people are born, but what they grow to be. Trans women will always be women. So again, doesn't prove anything. And, You know, I go onto my old Instagram where I just follow a lot of woke progressive musical theater people. And every time something big happens, you know, whether it's Trump, anytime something they perceive as right wing to happen, if it's an election, if it's this, you know, they're all over it. Particularly, I went there when all the stuff with the rape gangs was going on. Absolute silence. Tumbleweed. Not a single person, even just vaguely saying it's terrible that thousands of girls have been raped. But then this, they're all over it. It just goes to show the absolute vapidness of their beliefs. It's all based off social pressure and appearing like they have status. I do kind of empathize with it on some cases, because if you take the route like I have, obviously I'm very public about my opinions, but even if you are silent in some cases, people start questioning you, or if you push back on things, and you have to be prepared for that fallout, because you lose lots of friends and things become very uncomfortable with people who you had once been very close with in life. So I do empathize with it, but ultimately I wish we could foster a culture of courage and bravery and critical thinking, because that is what we've lost. And I really hope the new generation comes in and rebels against the millennials and some of the older Zoomers, that critical thinking and disagreements just become popular again. You know, that would be a really good thing. I will say, however, please don't check in on your trans friends if you're not choosing to publicly speak about this yourself. Allies, this is the time to use your platforms to show your allyship. We fight for you when you need someone. These people are just on another planet. They don't realize how totalitarian their worldview is. That they're basically telling someone, you're not allowed even ask your trans friend if they're okay if you are not committed to speaking publicly on this. I mean, F you. You know, you don't believe in freedom of speech. You don't believe in freedom of association, committed to speaking publicly on this. I mean, you don't believe in actual liberal values. You guys are so deranged and beyond help. And we need to push back against you with every might we have, because anyone has the right to associate with who they want to. No one is compelled to post on social media. Who are you to say, don't check in on your friends? I can't. I just want to say, if you are trans and reading this, I love you, and so do all my mates. Well, you don't really know that actually, because lots of people are secretly gender critical because they've realized how harmful this movement is, and they've woken up to so much of the shit happening. Hey guys, just want to say, if you want to support my channel, there are a few ways you can do this. There is a PayPal link in the description for a one-time donation. You can join the YouTube membership community for access to the Jack Jewell Uncut videos, or even better, join the Jack Jewell Uncut Substack, where you get access to all of those uncut videos, plus articles seen nowhere else. So hope to see you there.
What are they celebrating?
My rights being taken away. When people think of trans women, they don't think of me.
No.
I'm young. I pass quite well. I blend in society. If you saw me walking down the street, you wouldn't know that I was trans. I sound like a woman.
I mean, that's up for debate, right? Because lots of women especially can tell, and you've probably had a lot of people around you validate the fact that you pass. But let's say you do. Yes, the majority of men claiming to be women are the more fetishistic, autogynephilic kind. And the problem is, you guys also espouse that, you know, only trans people know how they feel. You know, it's not based off other people's perceptions, and people are trans no matter what stage of their transition they're at. So you guys have got yourself in a real bind, because you can't discriminate against who is trans and who is not. But then at the same time, you don't want to be associated with these, what you call bad actors, when in fact, you know, the people claiming to be the reasonable trans people are just, for the most part, gay men who've been through a lot. I get that, but you're still not women. They're not trying to take your rights away. You have taken their rights away by all of this sneaky legislation, and they are reclaiming that. And it's really good to see a lot of these women celebrating.
They think of Little Britain. They think of these caricatures of men who have these weird depravities invading female spaces. But I'm just trying to live my life. And everyone around me in real life sees that. And I'm not a danger, and we're not a danger.
Yeah, so I mean, I could probably convince a room of liberal women that as a gay man, I feel unsafe in the men's changing room, and, you know, get them on board with me using their changing room. But that is just a specific group of people, okay? You're just trying to live your life. It doesn't matter. You're a man, you're a male. You have to come to terms with that, right, girl? It's not women's fault, and you are just one unique case. There would probably be a lot more women who would be for this if it was guaranteed that only the really innocent sounding, more meek, less abusive men claiming to be women wanted to come into the spaces, there'd probably be more women who could get on board with that, especially if most of them passed or whatever. But that's not the case. That is not the case. So they need to keep out all men. You know, they need to keep out all men so they can have their safe spaces. Otherwise, they're not single-sex spaces, okay? You need to come to terms with your problems and find a way to navigate it. There needs to be consensus on if people choose to go under these medical procedures, then they are making their lives more complicated, because then they have to decide, do I still use the men's bathroom and potentially get looks, or do I just self-exclude entirely? You know, it's a you issue. Lots of us have issues that we have to look after and deal with ourselves.
I hate to make anyone feel uncomfortable. Like, I avoided, you know, bathrooms. I still avoid changing rooms, and I think that's totally valid. But I just think that the rhetoric is so toxic.
The rhetoric is just saying women are women.
There'll be loads of people who would very supportive, very delighted by today's judgment, who are as disgusted as all decent people are by an awful lot of what else Donald Trump is ushering in. And yet, I don't know how you separate yourself from that, how you make it clear that you wish it was somebody else that had done this thing that you approve of. But as it is, it's the self-confessed sex offender who you're cheering for his attitude towards transgender women. The bloke who really does go around grabbing women by their genitals. He's your man. I don't know. I mean, do you pause and think, how have I ended up on his team? How have I ended up on the same team as the self-confessed sex offender, the guy who boasts about grabbing women by their genitals? The guy that sued a woman who accused him of rape for libel and lost. How'd I end up on his team?
Yeah, you have yourself to thank for that, James, and the progressives, because you guys have followed a trend of cancelling anyone that steps one toe out of line. If you guys had the balls earlier on to recognize, actually, this is not in line with the rest of our progressive values, it's actually quite anti that, then you wouldn't have had the right-wing side swoop in and fill that void. You have yourselves to blame. And most of these women don't give a shit that Donald Trump agrees with them. All sorts of crazy people will agree with all sorts of other things you believe in. They can still hate Donald Trump, but appreciate that one thing he's done. Not everyone is as partisan as you. So nice to be with James momentarily once again. This ruling that trans women aren't women isn't about clarity. It's about Westminster asserting dominance over Scotland's attempt to legislate equality. No, it's about Westminster saving Scotland's ass from making a complete fool of themselves. A political power play brought forward by an anti-trans group funded by J.K. Rowling, in which trans women are being used as a pawn. That doesn't make any sense. Like, they're an anti-trans group, but then they're also using trans women as a pawn. For what? They're a pro-female group. The problem is that all these people come to the argument in the first place with these concepts of cis woman and, you know, anti-trans. They're not looking at things objectively. So they're already just speaking about things from a position of they've decided what the outcome is. The Scottish National Party wanted to make it easier for trans women to self-ID. Amidst a growing and long-standing movement for Scottish independence, the UK government has brought down its iron fist to remind Scotland of its power and control. Transphobia is always deeply rooted in authoritarianism, colonialism, and general bigotry. So just buzzwords once again, but actually the Scottish people voted against independence. So that's democracy, right? Not authoritarianism. And then in terms of self-ID, that whole policy is widely unpopular with the public. So it's not like the UK government has blocked a policy that was popular with Scotland. Then that would be very anti-democratic. But what they've done is save their ass from doing something utterly idiotic. It is a fringe movement that believe in these things. You guys need to wake up and realize you're in the minority. Now, let's check out what Frida Wallace has to say.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you're in public, your first priority should be other people's privacy and dignity. I think if you can't be in public and not respect those things, you probably shouldn't be in public at all. If you're out in public and you're pointing at strangers because you think they might be trans, then you've got a problem. You know that, and people do that.
Well, this isn't about that, is it? It's just about determining what sex discrimination is in law. There's many people who shouldn't be out in public. It doesn't stop them going out and doing horrific crimes, which is why we have safeguarding.
So, and also this thing about dating apps and social spaces like lesbian clubs. I'm from a very small town I don't have the luxury. I didn't have the luxury when I was younger of having a gay men's club or a lesbian club or a trans club. There wasn't a population for it, but we recognised as young people that the people who attacked us for very similar reasons. So the reason the LGBTQ existed wasn't because we invented it, it was because there was nowhere else for us to go.
No, it was gay people. You know, it was once nothing to do with you, but you guys have rewritten history and made it about yourselves. When you are a fetishistic male, an autogynephilic male who has nothing to do with gay people.
Saw that pride flag on a building, it meant you will be safe here. You won't get beaten up by football fans. You, if you see a pride flag on a train, it may seem tokenistic, but it's like saying to somebody, we have your back if something goes wrong.
And that was for gay people. But now when they see the Pride Progress flag, it signifies mutilation of children and the dismantling of women's rights. So you've totally tainted it. You've ruined it for us and for yourselves.
Because for the longest time, I had to know when match days were in my town, so I didn't have to get on public transport during those times. So this sort of luxury vexation about, oh, we can't have lesbian spaces. You can have lesbian spaces, but the thing is with those, I mean...
And you were also just presenting as a man during that whole time, a straight man. So what are you talking about?
I think there is a problem with and I think it's to do with the nighttime economy more than anything, but spaces and clubbing is sort of less than it used to be. So when I go out now, everything's sort of, nobody has a gay club anymore. Most people just, in Manchester, you go in the Northern Quarter, everybody, they don't care if you're gay, lesbian and bisexual or whatever. Everybody just seems to meet and have a dance.
Which is why it's more important that we cherish those we have, and you guys stop shutting down spaces that exclude the opposite sex when they're supposed to be gay. You guys get regular pride, which is all about gender now. And in London, you also get trans pride. You know, where is the just gay pride? You're allowed to exclude us, but we're not allowed to exclude you. And we are sick of it.
My point really is that these paranoias, that it seems like you've reversed engineered an argument where trans women are the threat. But what that does, not only does it ignore the reality that women are telling you what the real threats are, it's like saying if you say trans women are a threat, you're also saying all men are a threat. And that almost says, well, if all men are a threat...
Some men are a threat and trans women are men, which we now understand in law, even though all of us understood it before. So ergo, some trans women are a threat, and the majority of trans women in jail in the UK are in for sexual offences. And actually, the statistics show that trans women, i.e. men, follow the same pattern of male crime statistically, even after transition, and they start identifying as women. We may as well do away with sex discrimination, unlawfully discriminate on sex, and be brought to court for that. If you want to include men in the category of women, then it's null and void. And women don't need a reason to want their own spaces. You know, freedom of association, they want their own space. They just don't feel comfortable getting undressed around males who are attracted to females. And that's enough. They don't even have to be a threat, a direct threat. That is enough.
It's the way society's going, isn't it?
Yeah, hang on a minute. Men are a threat to women.
Joanna,
the vast majority of violence that's perpetrated against women is perpetrated by men.
Let Frida finish her point.
Okay, but that's a very important point.
If we say that men are innately violent, or that it's a natural... No, I know you didn't, but people do in this argument, because they'll say that it's a problem of men. It's almost... We need to educate boys out of misogyny.
So many of them just have this really fake voice. Do you guys notice that? If all these men are supposed to be violent, then we really need to educate boys. And I love this argument, like, oh, we just need to teach men not to be predators. Yeah, okay, let me know when you've solved that issue. And in the meantime, let's just allow all those men into female spaces. You know, why don't you solve that impossible to solve issue and remove all male inclinations for violence, which are coming far more from immigrant populations, you know, which you guys are also very pro open borders. Let me know when you've solved that problem and you've somehow intervened in every family case to stop males becoming predators. And you'll always have a portion of psychopaths, you know, not even men who've been through trauma. You'll have a portion of psychopaths in society that end up abusing people. You can't just educate complete male violence out of society. You can improve it, you know, look at the propensity for male violence in Middle Eastern countries compared to here. So you can definitely improve it. There's a socialization element to this, but it is men that have a higher propensity towards violence. You're never going to get rid of it completely. And the only way we can protect women, you know, is keeping men out of the spaces. And if you're upset, then that's a you problem.
And we need to listen to what women are saying about their experiences in the world. And what the gender critical argument does is it talks over women. I don't want to be talking about trans issues all the time. I want to be talking about misogyny, because that is the force that affects me and women.
You can't suffer misogyny if you're a man. This is deranged.
I think we've actually found 2 points of agreement there, because I think you were nodding at what Frida said about misogyny, Joanna, and also she agreed with you about privacy.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah, go on.
Well, Julie Bindel was on Piers Morgan the other night, and she came face to face with proper MAGA misogyny. And normally I would not support Julie Bindel, but when I heard what that man said to her, I would fully support Julie Bindel. He was calling her the most misogynistic
that's another point of agreement, because I would fully support Julie Bindel as well. So
we agree that the problem is misogyny. The problem is misogyny. Of course I agree.
Yeah, misogyny against a woman because she's a woman. So you can agree on that. But you can't experience misogyny. You can experience discrimination due to your gender nonconformity. You know, that's real. Or you could experience abuse because you claim to be the opposite sex, and that's real. But you can't experience misogyny because you're not a woman.
Problem is misogyny. Misogyny is directed
But it's not coming from trans women,
Misogyny is directed against women.
Well, lots of women disagree with that because you basically think being a woman is a costume, and you are also a male who dresses up in a very fetishistic way and have said the most disgusting stuff. You post stuff online about going to the torture garden and being a dominatrix and being a sex worker, and you post videos of that online. I almost did a debate with Frida Wallace on my channel, and then lots of people warned me against it because apparently it's not a good idea to get involved with Miss Thing. But Frida just DM'd me a video unsolicited of Frida pouring hot wax on a male on all fours, being a dominatrix. I didn't ask for that. If this is the kind of person you are, there's very few women who just send unsolicited sexual videos, and that just shows your maleness coming through and your lack of ability to control your libido. You know, I never wanted to see that. Don't know what the intention behind that was. But you love it, clearly, making people uncomfortable.
Women from men, and trans women are men.
Yeah, but you've just...
Trans women are men. Trans women are men who wish to identify as women. And you'll notice that I always use the pronouns that people wish to be used. So I've called you she, but I don't believe you...
I'm surprised she does that, right? Because, wow, how the Overton window has shifted that you can be on a mainstream UK broadcaster and just say trans women are men. You know, things have really shifted for the good. But I'm kind of surprised she uses the preferred pronouns. I mean, I do sometimes. I know people don't like that, but I wouldn't do for Frida or India or any of these crazy people.
You're a woman, Frida. I believe you're a man who wishes to identify as a woman. And out of courtesy, I will call you she.
Just before we go to the news, Gareth says, which is a point I haven't actually thought about, but Joanna, you'll both have a view on this. Joanna's point about private spaces. What if women don't want to get changed in the same place as lesbian women?
It's not the point. Different argument. They're women, you know? This is what Stonewall and these places have done. They've meshed us together. Don't insult us by comparing this. They are both women. I'm not hearing anyone complaining about that. You know, I've never had a man complain about me being gay in the same changing room as him. Never. I've not heard about women complaining about lesbians in their changing room. Never. So this is just an what if argument, but what women are complaining about is men in their changing rooms, which is why we're tackling the issue. You know, let me know if we're getting all these complaints and situations of women being attacked by lesbians and straight men being attacked by gay men, and then we can talk. But that's not what this conversation is about. This is about sex.
Because I mean,
this is an old shibboleth.
Because I mean, you can also
there's no
say
evidence
for gay men as well.
There's no evidence that
just lump us in, thanks.
And women commonly attack other women. There's plenty of evidence that men commonly attack women. That is the sad reality of our society.
I've got a friend who's a lesbian. She's very butch. She's got a shaved head and she's very tall. And when she's with me, sometimes people give us homophobic slurs because they think we're a lesbian couple. Now, I know I'm not a lesbian, but...
I'm just surprised because this just never happens to me in the UK. Like, I never get slurred. It used to happen to me in Ireland a bit. But it's never, like, maybe I'm just not in the right areas. I don't know. But I do think these things are exaggerated. I'd be skeptical. Let's check in on the Green Party. I know there are many trans and non-binary people who will be feeling deeply worried today. You know, non-binary didn't even come up in this. We're just talking about what women are. The Green Party continues to support a policy of self-ID to allow trans people to live full lives free from harassment in the gender they know themselves to be. You know, self-ID causes no issues. And the Green Party, I just don't understand what they're aiming for, because they support all of these fringe ideas. You know, they could easily find out how popular these ideas are with the public, but they're continuing to support them. So, you know, how do they plan on ever being in government or gaining power? You know, they're always going to remain this fringe party that are only voted in by ultra progressive constituencies. It's impossible for them to build a coalition, and especially when they say stuff like this.
Trans people are not associated anywhere or in any way with increased risks or dangers to women and girls. There is no evidence anywhere in the world, including in places where self-ID laws exist, that policies that allow trans people to access single-sex spaces and their services in line with their lived sex increase harm to others. None at all, not a shred. Quite the opposite. There is evidence that not allowing trans people to access these spaces increases the harm that they face. I wouldn't subject a young trans woman to having to change in a men's locker room. It simply wouldn't be safe for her. It's more likely that trans people just end up not being able to participate in normal activities at all. Exercise, socializing, and all the things that every human needs to thrive. It is not okay to discriminate against people who have done you,
Ms. Slater.
Thank you, no harm.
What about the definition of man, says drag queen Crystal? Well, very good question, Crystal, because the fact that this is focused on women just goes to show how much of a misogynist movement it is, because it's women that are facing most of the brunt of these ideas, you know? That is why, and it just goes to show that sex is real and that it's binary. It's one sex that's being discriminated against because of these ideas and these policies.
What is actually wrong with people? What is wrong with this country, with this world? What the fuck is going on? Like, what harm are trans people actually causing you? Fuck all. Absolutely nothing. They're going about their life and trying to be happy and trying to deal with their own shit.
Are they causing any harm?
There's bigger things going on in the world than, I just don't.
Do these people just never see the stories coming out that are harming women and gay people? Do they just not see them? Or are they just able to reconcile that this has nothing to do with trans people? Like, I just don't understand, even if they think every bad story is, oh, well, they're not really trans. Even if they think that, it's still the whole ideology which is causing the issues and allowing them to happen in the first place. They believe that males should be allowed in women's sports. So of course they're not going to think that women are being harmed by that. And what threat are trans women to you? Well, you validate the threats. You validate the harm. So of course you don't think that harm is being done to people. You validate kids being sterilized and you don't think it's harmful. So of course you don't think that harm is being done to people. It's just such a cyclical group of people. Everything is just validated by self-fulfilling prophecies and ignorance. And it's just in this constant doom loop of not facing up to reality, which of course is why it has to be like that, because it's not with reality.
Who is anyone to... Trans women are women.
Of course. If all fails, you know, if you're getting a bit stuck on what to say, trans women are women. Yeah, because that has worked so far.
I tell you what, I'll go and enter all the women's boxing competitions, and I'll go and, you know, start going back into the women's toilets again and go in the women's hospital wards and do all these things. And then people might actually realise that, oh, well, we've just opened the door to any man to walk in and go, well, I was born female.
No. Argument doesn't work. So first of all, okay, this is obviously a trans man, so a woman on testosterone. So women would be disqualified for being on essentially steroids in competitions. So that argument's null and void. Then if you choose to transition, then you have the complexity to navigate on whether you use third spaces, of which there are many. Most places have disabled toilets. They have stalls and stuff like that. You can get around it. You know, if you're going to the gym, you could change beforehand, shower at home. These things, it's possible to work around them. There's lots of us who have obstacles in life that we need to put provisions, you know, in for ourselves. And no one is checking your genitals. No one is inspecting you. The fact is, if there is a law and a company has a policy, it's only the people that are more nefarious that are going to break that. There's going to be lots of trans people who reluctantly abide by it because that's what they're being told. You have a door that says, do not enter. Only people that you really don't want to enter would end up crossing that line. So actually, social norms matter in this case.
I promise you now, this does not make any space safer for women.
It does.
At all. And you can't, how do you even police this? Like, are you going to have bouncers on the doors of every toilet in every establishment to check whether someone... Yeah. To check whether someone was assigned female at birth? It's terrifying and frightening for people.
But it will empower women to notice men and say, get out. And it will prevent lots of men from feeling emboldened to do it because society is saying no. That's the point. There's lots of things and social norms which society abide by, and then some people choose to stray from them. And then we have things like the police to intervene on those issues.
I just can't figure out why trans people are not trying to erase anything or anyone. They're not trying to erase language. They're not trying to erase people's rights. They're not trying to erase any of that.
Except that you're trying to sterilize gay kids, remove the right for single sex spaces. You guys know the deal. You are.
They're asking for choice. They're asking for freedom. They're asking for safety. They're asking for human rights. They're asking for healthcare. They're asking for...
You have all those things. You have human rights. You have safety, largely the same as any other person. When are you guys going to get that you're asking for special privileges and the government and society are saying no?
Everything that every human being is entitled to because we're all humans first, regardless of anything else.
Just means nothing.
This is a narrative to make society easier to control. This is not to try and make women safer because...
No, projection again. You guys have used these arguments to control society and make people lose their jobs, deplatform people, ruin people's careers. Like, it's just such projection.
The ruling has been made, and it's now incumbent upon myself and others to think about the implications of this ruling. I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. It has happened. It's established. And I think I listened to it live.
I mean, this is what you guys are advocating for. This is a woman. That's a woman, right? Is this what you want? Do you want a young woman to not have the choice of not sharing a changing room with this guy? Like, what are you advocating for?
And yeah, the judge was quite clear that there are two categories of women, a biological woman and a certificated woman. And as a certificate...
That's not what he said, actually. He said that women means biological women. And, you know, people who identify as trans are still protected under the Equality Act of having gender reassignment. And that just means you can't be, you know, denied the ability to apply for a job because you're trans. It doesn't mean that you get to infiltrate other sex boundaries.
And I never saw my rights as conflicting with others in the same way that they thought that about me. So yeah, the devil's in the detail. It's how the EHRC, it's how the government implement this that's going to be seen, and how service providers...
Are these autogynephilic males just so unaware of how little femininity they have about them? Lots of them are more manly than me, you know? Actually, most of them. It's just, there's a lot of no self-awareness going on with all of these people.
Start excluding, that's where the danger is. So it's not just about trans women, it's also about trans men. There are many trans men who will be seen as biological women that will be completely affected by this in the same way that I am. So yeah, it's early days.
The reaction within the transgender community, Joanne, I don't know whether you've had time to talk to other people, to communicate with them maybe on social media this morning. What's the feeling amongst trans people now?
I guess I speak for myself, you know, I don't want to speak for others, but my worry is this will weaponize discrimination against people who are trans, whether male or female, trans man or trans women, and will experience further discrimination further marginalisation, further violence.
Honestly, what marginalization do you guys actually experience? You guys rule the roost. You're all over the BBC, Netflix, the mainstream. You're supported by all of Hollywood and celebrities. You are given special protections in law. So far, you've been able to bully women. And I just don't understand it. Where is the marginalization happening? It's just a self-fulfilling prophecy.
A further loss of access to living our lives freely. That's what we're worried about. That's what I'm worried about. And hopefully the government, the HRC, will provide clarity and guidance to service providers to ensure that I, as someone who's protected under the gender reassignment protected characteristic, am not going to experience a lesser quality of life as a result.
Just before we bring in Fiona, Lord Hodge in his statement did say, Joanne, that there would be protections for members of the trans community. He was quite clear about that, protections in law.
There already are.
Oh, completely. And it's trying to see how people weaponize against people like myself in the future, whether I'm suddenly denied, I'm having to produce evidence. And it's not just going to affect trans people, it's also affect biological women, biological men who don't meet the social constructs and definition of what a man or a woman is. So we'll see butch lesbians challenged about their identity.
That would have been the same in the past, but it's you guys that have made this more complicated. It's you guys that have made people more skeptical. Honestly, you've brought it upon yourselves. I'm sorry. You know, I do have some sympathy because what we're dealing with is a population of people who, a lot of them have been through shit, which is why they think they're the opposite sex. You know, they are told by their communities that they're under threats of murder and violence, which obviously creates a lot of anxiety, even if it's unjustified. And they were promised something by the medical community and by politicians and institutions that they could make these decisions and then society would validate them. That is a sad reality for these people, that they have been promised something which the world cannot deliver on because the world lives in reality. And this doesn't. I do have sympathy for that, but the gender critical movement tried to start this from a reasonable position, and the trans movement could have conceded and come to the table, and things wouldn't have ended up this, as they say, toxic. But they pushed back. They abused women. It wasn't really the other side abusing you guys. They've abused women. They've abused gay people, and it's been brought on themselves. I feel sorry for the, you know, trans identifying people who kind of went a lot more quiet and respectful about this. But hopefully we'll reach some peace for this conversation. It's going to be really weird when it's eventually over. In light of everything that's going on in the UK and how our country is becoming less safe, we can't control our borders, the economy is terrible. I'm proud to live in Britain and at least be part of a nation that is leading on this battle. And I'll be very happy if we can help other countries. So on that serious note, guys, let's leave it there. Let me know what you thought of all the wokey meltdowns. Do you think that this is going to be a step forward? Are we going to really progress on these issues? And what points did I mention that you agree or disagree with? I'd be very curious to know. With that said, I will see you soon for another video. Bye.